Hello, everyone out there in internet land. My name is Xander Raylo, and this is my co-host, Michael Fry.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Too Many Games, the show where we are two GMs with too many players, too many games, and way too much free time to talk about it. So we're going to sit here and talk about it with you. So how many times have you killed a player with their backstory?
At least a dozen.
An actual dozen, or are you just estimating?
Like I said, at least a dozen. There's been a few times that I have just completely butchered somebody because they have made an edgelord or something like that and played with their backstory.
So, do you feel like you go after characters in particular who are edgelords?
Only if they annoy me.
Actually, I've never really seen you go after the edgelord as much as, what do I want to call them? I almost want to call them the visionary.
The visionary.
Well, sorta. I mean, you get characters who have a great vision for the world, a change that they want to do. But, alright, we're going to take Vampire the Masquerade for a second, because this is the easiest example that I can think of.
Okay.
So we've got all your different vampires and that kind of thing, but we've got the caitiffs, the breeds, the on the lower ends.
Right.
Typically treated lower than anything. And you get a caitiff who is against the, damn it, I forgot what the, what is it called? I know it's the Masquerade, but what is the, for the government body system?
The Camarilla.
That one.
The Camarilla.
That one. But they want to go against the stereotype that caitiffs are lower than dirt. So they're constantly approaching every single higher up in existence, saying, it like comes like, hey, I'm caitiff and I'm proud of it, or hey, you shouldn't treat caitiffs this way. Or something like that. Basically boiling down to trying too hard.
Yeah, the tryhards really get me.
But using player backstory, we both have done this in some form or the other. Who is the most difficult to do?
What do you mean?
You got a slew of character backstories here, and depending on the size of the game, you go through a couple ones and pick and choose which ones you like. Did you have one where you kind of wanted to use it, or you had no idea about how to apply it?
Well, I've had two where I've had no idea how to apply it whatsoever.
Sure.
One of them was in Beast, and you know that one.
Mm-hmm.
The other one was actually yours. One of yours.
One of mine. All right. Which game?
Grim.
The homebrew World of Darkness?
Yes. I had no clue what to do with Talion at first.
So we have this game where we have characters who are myths and fairy tales and that kind of thing have a big impact on my world. And there's a character there who is very closely connected to the myth of the huntsman from the Snow White story. I'm surprised you had such a difficult time using that one.
Well, like everybody else, I had, I'm drawing a blank, the Big Bad Wolf. Easy.
Mm-hmm.
The Pan. Easy. Beauty and the Beast kid. That one was iffy too.
Yeah.
But the player had no clue what he wanted to do with it.
Yeah. So is that worse? A player having no clue of what they want to do with their backstory, or a player who has such a strong clue of what they want to do with their backstory, but you have no idea what to do with it? I mean, I found it easier to work with the player who has no idea about what they want, because that means I get to put it on its head.
That is definitely a question. Most of the time, I find it easier to deal with the players who kind of know what they want to do, but not have any full clue as to what their backstory is. Most of the time, it's trying to think of the word here.
While we pause for dramatic effect, this week's non-sponsor is Bob the Builder. Can we fix it? No, we can't.
No, probably not. Probably not.
No.
Okay. So, for me, example, I have a hard time coming up with a backstory at first. I can build the character, build it exactly the way I want it, then fill out the details as I go of my backstory. You know, especially if I have a couple of weeks before the game. If it's, that day and I'm having to build a character, that character is going to suck.
So, you build first and then you approach backstory.
I have a hard time just coming up with a backstory first. The best I can do is come up with an idea, and then over the week I can come up with something that's usable.
I've noticed a couple of times when when the game is starting, there's always a little bit of screwing around. Things are kind of thrown against the wall. We're testing our characters, figuring what they like, how they deal in social situations, how they deal with each other, and you as the DM are trying to test your world, so to speak. Unless it's one of the pre-built modules.
Right.
So, kind of like
which I'm not a fan of.
Yes. With backstories, what was the one that grabbed you the quickest of any game?
Of any game? Again, that's a very good question.
I'll tell you mine. The easiest that I've had to do was in our 5th edition game, Catriana. Because my girlfriend made this character. She has a very specific template that she built upon, and this was a character that she had written previously, so she had her backstory pretty much set. It was very kind of nicely numbered and needed for me to go, okay, I know what to do with this. I know what to make of this. So, now, details got changed a little bit here and there between when I was first given the backstory and as of current day, what I've used with the actual. I will say that actually the most difficult backstory I've ever had to so far work into a game. The easiest answer is yours, because you don't always have a background that you want to do.
Right.
I have to wait for you to kind of be a little bit more inspired to come to me.
Right.
Hardest backstory I've ever had to work into a game, though. I'd almost have to say I think the award goes to Poppy.
Yeah, I can see hers being difficult.
And
let's see.
The Dryad who is isolated from society, you'd think it'd be at least the easiest backstory, has turned to as there's no backstory. But but our players want a little bit of something, so I would say hers is the most difficult to work with. Kind of figure out that how much backstory can there be. She joined us at 5th, 6th level, I think. It's been a long time. I'd say at least 5th or 6th level she joined us as a character. So, she obviously had some experience. Say again?
I have my hardest.
Okay.
I know what the hardest one to work in was. And it didn't work out for us.
Go ahead.
Vampire.
Oh, well, I mean, he was, only in 2-3 sessions?
He was in 2 or 3 sessions, but he had this beautiful backstory where this character was a complete coward. And I'm like, I don't know how to work this in. I've never had to deal with a coward character before. So that was kind of an odd thing for me. I'm like, how does this character become a hero, or at least functional?
That was not the answer I thought you were going to say.
Oh yeah?
I thought you were going to say Nathan. Not simply because the backstory was easiest for you to work with, but because the backstory was so forcibly brought up by the player that it was essentially a, please use it on me, please.
We need to give a little context to this. Nathan was the son of Beauty and the Beast in my Grimm game. At first, he did not want to be a prince. He did not want to work as a prince. And then he had these enemies, which in the World of Darkness game you can choose it as a flaw.
Mm-hmm. And you can how many points you want to put into it determines how powerful the enemy is going to be.
He had 7 enemies, 7 points worth of enemy, and he wanted each individual dot of their names to spell out the word asshole.
Yeah, it's not one enemy that's 7 dots. It's 7 1-dot enemies.
So we spent, 3 months trying to fit this in. It never came. It never happened.
Well,
we never even got...
This was actually the first time where you asked me to help you work on something.
Yes.
I don't think I was actually brought on as a full-time assistant around that time, but you were saying, I need to create people for this enemy. I don't know what to do, and I offered to help. But then...
Right.
It was originally 7, and then we convinced it to be dropped down to 5. To spell a different name instead. So we had to drop down to 5... 5?
6.
6. You're right, because we split it down in half. You took 3, I took 3, and we had them all made. All of them made. Never used them.
Never used them.
In that one. We are now using them one campaign later.
Well, we also spent so much time with his secondary plotline. We didn't have time for his primary.
Okay. There are a lot of GMs out there who probably incorporate their character's backstory in some form, whether it be as minor as a location or as major as an actual arc or a plotline dedicated around that. Both Xander and I approach plot differently. I tend to go full force into the narrative, weaving an arc around one kind of character at a time, maybe 2 characters at a time, depending on the character. You kind of spread them out a little bit, in kind of what I like to call...
I tried to avoid it.
You try to avoid it now, but you didn't at first. You tried to use stuff at first. 2 players, we have learned a lesson. You gotta have some idea about what you want. And if a DM takes the time to use that backstory, it may not be what you want, but, be happy for it. I mean, we've all been disappointed before about how you expect one thing to go and it went the other way. He never knew what he wanted from the beginning, and it stuck throughout the entire game. And I think that's why it's important to have at least a paragraph of a backstory. 25 words.
Yes,
no,
or at least
250 words.
Or at least
words.
some idea of where your character is from. At
Mm-hmm.
least some idea of where your character is from. If you don't have a backstory at the very beginning of the game, that's fine. Some DMs don't require it. They can work it in as you go.
Mm-hmm. Actually, you know what the easiest thing to do? And one of our players did this for the second Grimm game. Do amnesia.
Amnesia, yes.
That's the tallest round. You can't think of a backstory. My character has amnesia. You're giving full reign for either the DM to do what they want, or you're buying yourself enough time to kind of think of something. Amnesia.
Or, if you happen to be playing any kind of World of Darkness game, Dark Secret.
Dark Secret, yeah.
That way only you and the DM know it. Nobody else around should know your backstory anyway, unless they're your friend or they've been your lifelong friend, whatever.
Yeah, unless you worked it in.
Yeah. Now, I actually have started using your way. Believe it or not.
Really? I feel honored.
Yes. I have kind of named that as a homebrew rule for our group. And that states that your backstory is from your perspective, not the perspective of other people.
Yeah. One of the ways that I approach backstory is the concept of the backstory that you tell me. And I don't know if a lot of players do this or if just our group does this. When they write a backstory down, they treat it as fact. And there are some things that are discernible facts. You are probably a female. You are probably an elf. A lot of people treat the written backstory, or as I notice, our group tries to treat it as fact. And I say, I approach it as, and apparently now you're approaching it as, which is awesome. No, it's not fact. It's your view of your own backstory.
That is how your character remembers it. So I have started using that. I haven't gotten to use it in the second campaign of Grimm yet, but I'm working it in.
Yeah, you're handling new characters with that one too. There's always a behind the scene. That's how I've kind of approached it. There's always something going on behind. There's always a curtain. The motivations that a character can understand may not be what they actually feel. My character's son in the homebrew thought his dad was an asshole who only had one redeeming quality of sacrificing his life. You turned it on its head a little bit. He was like, no, it wasn't like this. He was enchanted.
I'm the first person that will question a backstory. Period. I will have questions for you that you probably don't have the answer to 9 times out of 10. If you come at me with a full backstory before the game even starts, I've done this several times. I'm like, okay, well, you're a low-level character. You've never experienced the world before. How do you know this? And if they can give me a good enough answer to that, I will let them keep it.
Mm.
But I'm the first person to question backstory.
When I first started the 5th edition game, we've had a couple backstories where the characters had experienced a lot, and they were level 1 characters, and the only reason why I didn't shoot it down initially is because I was just starting to know the ins and outs of 5th edition, so I wanted to start everything at building blocks beginning, at level 1, and then kind of grow everybody from there so that not only could they have the experience leveling up, but I could have the experience leveling up a bunch of characters at a time, see what the typical path of progression is. If I had started the 5th edition game now, there are a couple backstories where I always said, shave that off, don't use that, you're a level 1 character. You only have so much experience. Right. Or I would have saved some time and just started them off at level 3 and saying, you can keep some of this and you can keep that.
One of my favorite characters of all time will be James McQueen.
The cowboy who I got to use for like 3 sessions?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
It was the terrible accent, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was a terrible accent. It was 100% a terrible accent.
Awesome.
But I mean, I know that you enjoyed Purple.
I did as a concept. Yes.
As a concept.
Yeah. And that's fun too. Sometimes when you don't have a backstory, you focus in on the concept. Purple was a great concept. But concepts, as you have told me, it's gonna run its course at some time. And I think those are the hardest characters to last. Concept characters.
Yes. I would say parody characters are the hardest to make last. You have a concept, a great idea for a character, and then it gets pushed away, and you change it, and it suddenly just becomes a big trope of itself. Like Purple, for example.
Purple and Glissa are actually good examples of...
Purple and Glissa are both parody characters. Purple was a mind flayer that spoke with a bad Antonio Banderas accent.
Which, that can turn to something great. That's why we have Ezio Auditore.
Right.
But that was his gimmick. He spoke in people's head Like Antonio Banderas.
Yes. And people would speak to him, and he would confuse them. And this is probably the greatest part about him. He would confuse the players because they were talking at him instead of speaking through their minds at him.
Mm-hmm. One person got it. One player got it. Catriona got it. She got it quick. Well, okay, not quick. But once she figured it out, she started using it more.
Yeah. Once I started calling her the tiefling or, the tiefling, the elf,
Mm-hmm.
and looking directly at him while I'm talking to him, that's it was great.
Yeah.
And then Purple was killed.
Yeah, he died.
He died.
He went up against a 12th level blood hunter with a great axe at close range.
Yeah. Yeah. And he was a one-trick pony. So he didn't get his mind blast off because he had already wasted it on the party itself.
Yeah, he turned on the party. Well, he was a money character, so he went where the money was. So he stunned most of the main party except for the cleric. The cleric was far away from the mind blast to be affected, but she had surrendered for the time being, getting ready to make an opening. Purple went to go off and deal with said blood hunter who happened to find him first. And because he had lost his mind blast, he couldn't cripple the blood hunter. So the blood hunter got in real close, few swings of the great axe. It didn't last too long. I think it was like, 3 rounds? Yeah. Yeah. 3-4 rounds of 1v1. That was the end of Purple.
Yes. But this was a level 4 character that fought a level 12 solo.
Yeah.
And survived 3 rounds. So that's a badge of honor for me.
Mm-hmm. And you had gone forward knowing he was probably going to get killed at some point.
Oh yeah. I knew that he was either going to get killed by the party, he was going to kill the party, or he was going to get killed by something else.
Now, Glissa was a parody of a backstory, essentially.
Okay, yeah. Glissa was a parody of 2 characters that were in the group because they were both angry. So I made a character that was angrier than the both of them to try to calm them down a bit. It didn't work.
Yeah, it kind of, you put an angry character with 2 more angry characters, you just get 3 angry people.
Right.
So,
Glissa was a revenant. Glissa was a revenant, so she was angry anyway.
Yeah, you've rounded up the full edgelord.
I did.
Revenant, elf, archer, searching for the one who killed her and her tribe. Angry as all hell.
So angry that I wanted to leave the wizard because he was slowing us down to getting to my goal to kill my enemy.
That character X-filled. She's somewhere out there in the world. Still hunting for the person who killed her.
Right.
You certainly tried, though. You certainly tried to kill him.
I did.
And you almost got him. I think he was down to, after the fall, 3 hit points.
Yeah. I should have shot him one more time.
Yeah.
But
a little extra damage, and then throw him off the Stone Titan, terminal velocity, and that kind of stuff probably would have ended. And full spectrum, I probably did not factor in terminal velocity or proper height fall damage. So that was on me, but that was a year ago.
Right. And this was a character that I knew was not going to last long.
Yeah, you were kind of... by then, you would ask me, I'm not really digging her. I think I'm going to exfil her out. I got this other character I want to try. So, if she didn't die taking out her enemy, or finishing out her enemy, she was going to leave anyway. So...
Right. Because the group was slowing her down.
Mm-hmm.
I really like Caleb. Like your character, Caleb.
Vampire the Masquerade. That was the first time we had started actively plotting outside of Gotham.
Right.
Why'd you like Caleb?
He was just this calm Bruja, which if you guys don't know, that's just a muscle-bound vampire from Vampire the Masquerade.
Mm-hmm. Typically super strength, that kind of deal. Rage
all
issues.
muscle, no brains, all passion. Yeah.
Rage issues.
And,
You're barbarians.
He was the calmest. He was the calmest member of this team. I mean,
he was the justiciar. He was the mediator. And when I
right.
took that as, I keep wanting using a grim homebrew terms. It's demeanor and nature.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. I can't remember which one was which, but I took justiciar as one of them, or the one that's the mediator, essentially. So when I took that, I was like,
right.
Okay. Now, for the first session, he was total vengeance. He wasn't super calm. But as the rest of the members started to kind of pile in, and we had Riley, who was super pissed, super kind of loner, one shot, wanted to do everything herself, didn't really trust anybody. And then we had the caitiff and the other characters. It was just kind of like, somebody's got to be the mediator. So Caleb kind of fell into the mediator. I think it was actually, and that was a backstory that became a main feature.
Yes. That was the first time in a long time that I had actually used somebody's backstory. Other than the Beast game, because that's how we started. Was in the middle of a character's backstory.
Yes.
I really enjoyed it, and it was actually the first time that we had worked together, like you said, outside of Gotham. And you came to me like, I've got this idea. I want to have it. I want my sire to be my enemy. I'm like, okay, yeah, let's do it. And then we both watched The Dark Tower.
So we had that for a while, and then I had seen. No, I haven't seen. I was about to see The Dark Tower, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
It was just coming out. I had never read the book, but I knew the cast: Idris Elba, Matthew McConaughey, and that kind of deal. And I cannot remember what turned me in that direction to look at Matthew McConaughey. I think I was just getting into The Dark Tower as kind of like someone I wanted to see. And then I saw Matthew McConaughey and was like, yeah, I like his look. The long black look, the way he talks, some of his lines in the trailers, his kind of character. So I sent you the image. And the moment I did that, he suddenly started becoming a main feature. You just got your hit of inspiration or something.
Right. And that's all I needed was that one image. And it was the image of him sitting back in his chair, thinking. It's all it was. It was as simple as that. And I'm like, I've got it.
Yeah. And the moment I did that, he started becoming a main feature, which I was stoked. The game was mostly on an event by event basis, but no real backstory has been used. And there were a couple characters who were trying. The caitiff.
Yes.
Had, again, the backstory of, I have this sire who I have no idea who it is. And it was brought up a lot, like, I want to find my sire, I want to know my sire. It was the biggest neon sign for, please use something from my backstory. Please use something from my backstory.
And that's the thing, though, he would do that in-game, and he wouldn't come to me and talk to me like you did, so I couldn't figure out a way to work his stuff in, especially a caitiff, because I hate a caitiff. I had figured out who his sire was, and I had left it alone at that. Like, it didn't matter until they met that character, whenever that came up.
Did you ever plan for it to come up?
Yes, I did.
Oh.
But
we never got to that point.
I had it set up into chapters. right? You know, just
Sure.
all set up into chapters, and I had it pinned in about 3 of them where it could fit into. And you know, it all depended on which route you went and all that.
Sure,
You could
you
skip
allowed some.
chapters and go back to them.
Yeah, you allowed
you know,
a little bit
you
of
could-
movement.
And I had enough for over a year's worth of play with this game, and we played it for about 7 months.
Yeah, sounds right.
Yeah.
7 months,
And by that-
22 or so sessions, something like that. It feels longer, though.
Yeah.
I feel like our earlier number was off.
Yeah, I think it was, because it was it was multiple sessions a week though. Sometimes.
Yeah, that's why 22 has been like. Anyway, it went for a long time. We played that one
Right.
pretty frequently.
We did 22 chapters. I don't know about how many sessions.
Yeah, at least I think it was like sometimes like 3-4 sessions per chapter, give or take. You took your time with this one.
Yes.
We didn't have anything going on at the time, so this was kind of it. But yeah, and then
And we
yeah,
had got to a point where I needed to take a break, and we just never went back to it.
oh, by take a break, if you mean start up Grim, then yes, you did take a break.
We jumped headfirst into another game.
You came was like, I got this. We're doing it. Threw this thing down in front of us, and it was like, okay, all right. At least we're doing the system, and
Yeah.
that's where that one went. Now, I mean, beyond that, the other vampire. There was one other character. And you'll know who I'm talking to. The more late edition. He had a backstory that was kind of being worked in. His sire was necromancer or something. It was his second character because his first character was another one of those concept characters.
Okay. Yes. I know who you're talking about now. No, his master was a Bali. His sire was a Bali. He was a Bali. Bali
Right.
they're vampires who make deals with demons and have demonic features.
Right. That was a backstory that I figured was going to come to head.
Yeah, and I was working on it. I was working on that one.
I think we were actually starting to approach that chapter when we stopped with Vampire. Let's see, like, out of the other backstories that I can recall weren't drawn in or used or weren't ready to be used just yet. So the only player's background actively going on at the time was Caleb's.
Right. Caleb's a little bit of the cadence because he was actively trying to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
But
oh, actually, I just remembered that was also a great example of you turning the backstory on its head.
mm-hmm.
My character's wife was supposed to be just dead. And now you're like, nah, she's a vampire.
Right, yeah.
I'm like, is my kid dead? She a vampire too? No, she's just dead. I was like, oh, okay. My kid's dead, but my wife's a vampire somewhere. Okay. That was the first time that I've seen you turn the backstory on somebody's head. And I think it was from that I kind of embraced the idea of backstory is perspective.
Right. So, you embraced it. But we just created a paradox, by the way. You embraced something that I did at random as a rule that I have now embraced as a rule.
Okay then. The paradox will collapse in on this show self, and you're going to see the screen kind of suck into the void.
The blue button is red. Yeah, that.
But yeah, I think that was I think the start for me to kind of approach backstory as a perspective. And ever since then, when I'm given a player backstory, I approach, okay, who can I use now? Who do I want to push off to later? And what do I guarantee as true or fact? And typically, I know another one. I think this one was of my creation? Star Wars. The Zabrax background. Was that yours or was that mine?
Yes. That was yours. I had nothing to do with that one.
Oh, of course. Yeah, that sounds like a me thing. We were given a Jedi who wanted to be a Jedi Sentinel. And keep in mind, this campaign is like hundreds and hundreds of years after the original trilogy, based off not the new Star Wars canon, but the Legends canon or the Legacy?
Canon.
Yeah, that one. Based off that canon line. So, 400 years or so later after that timeline, of course, Jedi Orders rise and fall again, and this one wanted to be a Sentinel. There are two versions of a Sentinel. There was the older ones, I think it was the Old Republic that he was thinking of.
Right, from the Old Republic.
The Jedi, the Sith Hunters.
Right. The Jedi Shadow is
Yeah.
what he was thinking. And then there's the Clone Wars version, which are
Temple Guards. So there was a little bit of confusion there, like, do you mean, why do you want to be a guard? Or are you talking about, yeah, I do, yeah, the more I think about it, that does sound like something I would do. He had this Jedi mentor who had mentored, oh, no, technically it was also you. You did it.
Yeah.
You inspired the question. Because the character was explaining the backstory to your Jedi Master, your NPC, and
Mm-hmm.
Was it?
It was Elric.
It was Elric?
It was Elric. Because Elric was assigned as his master.
Elric brought it up. I thought it was you. Actually, I thought it was your Chiss. Okay, it doesn't matter. Somebody brought it up. I was pretty sure it was you.
Right.
I was pretty sure it was...
It could have been. I slept since then.
Yeah. It was either your Jedi Master or it was your Chiss. And one of the two of them, they were explaining the backstory, and you asked a question. And that question was, why did that Jedi Master save only you?
That's right. That was my master. Yes, that was the master that I had created.
Mm-hmm. You would ask the question, why did that master only see you? And he didn't have an answer.
Right.
He didn't know why. And it was a hole in the player didn't really think of, but didn't really expand upon it either. Just kind of, it doesn't matter. She just saved me. And that got to me thinking, right. Well, why did she save him? Why did she save only him? Did she run out of time? Did she couldn't reach any other students? I mean, she had time to not only reach him, but give her his protocol droid.
Long story short, the Sith had attacked the Jedi Temple.
Again.
Killed the Jedi. Same
again.
old story. Same old story. Told 4 or 5 different times.
Rhyme and rhythm.
And
it's one of the rules of Star Wars.
Right. And his master saved only him. Out of all the younglings there, his master only saved him. And that bothered me as a DM. So I had my NPC ask him, why were you the only one saved?
I do not remember him having a clear answer.
And he could not answer the question. So this led to that same Jedi Master working with the Sith later.
Mm-hmm. And actually, the more I think about it, I think you came up with that idea, but I worked up the backstory for it.
I did not come up with the backstory with the idea for it at all because I was completely oblivious to the idea.
Right! Oh my god, I just remembered, right, because you were saying, why didn't I think of that? Right. I came up to you with like, hey, I remember that now. I remember that. I came up with we were just starting to kind of work together, and I was starting to come up to you saying, hey, I know what you're doing. You're making this character's Jedi part of the Sith. So, what did you have planned for that? And you went, what? That Jedi, you're making her part of the Sith. I mean, it's so obvious. What are you doing about? What's your plan with it? And you went, oh my god, why did I think of that? And I was flabbergasted going, I thought you thought of that! I couldn't see your face, but I imagined that your eyes had widened slightly as you were just realizing that it was so obvious it was right under your nose.
Right. because I was the one with the initial line of questioning, and I didn't even think of it because I'm like, they're dead. You know, that was it. I don't care. I'm just wanting to see if he has an answer for me. You know, because I had the idea for a traitor, and I didn't know who the traitor was going to be.
Yeah, this was one of those kind of throwing things on the wall, see what stick. That Star Wars game was the victim of throwing things at the wall and seeing what stuck.
It really was. It really was.
So after getting over the shock of why didn't I think of that, you were now suddenly open to this possibility. And like I said, well, I mean, I was starting to work on something if you didn't have anything already. So then I'm up with the backstory for that character. So you kind of came up with the idea, even though you didn't realize you came up with the idea. And I ran with the idea thinking that you had already come up with the idea and that was the path you were going down. Because I remember my girlfriend saying, oh, it's so obvious that she's a bad guy. You know, she only saved him? She only saved him out of all the people there? There's something fishy with that. She's clearly a bad guy. And I was thinking, well, I mean, if she can most definitely see that, and she doesn't even like Star Wars that much, and he most definitely thought that.
Oh, yeah, and it completely flew over my head, because I was not caring about that backstory at all.
We have wonderful examples of a player type trying to force a backstory into the forefront.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Don't force your backstory into the forefront unless it's like a legit flaw. You know, like if you're doing a storytelling game and you have a flaw where you are required to pursue that, that's one thing. You know, you're playing to the aspect that you yourself chose.
I mean, if your DM's cool with it, that's fine. You know, because your DM might not have a clue what he's doing with this particular backstory either. So you might be able to push them in the direction. But typically, it's better to come at them after the game rather than during the game.
Yeah, it's just, you know, don't try to force your backstory. Let it happen. And I know it gets rough because it's hard to see things from the other side of the table. On the player side of the table, you're sitting there wondering, you know, when am I going to get my moment? You know? You know, it feels like everybody else is getting their moment but me. When am I going to get my moment? And the GM's trying to tell them, no, I have something for you. Please, you know, just hold on. You know, you got to trust me on this.
Especially when you're online like we are, because we can't see each other, so we don't know how anxious you're getting on the other end of the screen.
Yeah. We don't have cameras on because most of our individuals' Wi-Fi can't hold a camera for that very long.
Right. And even if we did, you know, most of us are just getting off work. We don't feel like being on camera.
Yeah, we're getting off work, or our internet's poor, or you know, that kind of thing. So we stick to audio. So we only have our voice to indicate when someone is getting anxious, and we don't always catch that all the time.
And then there's the times where we catch you being too anxious, you know, and you're the only one being anxious, so that tells us there's a problem.
Do you have a favorite backstory that you've worked on?
Do I have a favorite backstory?
Yeah, I'm asking.
My own, you mean?
Your own, or one that you've used. Yeah, I'm asking you to pick favorites.
Okay. All right. Favorite backstory. Again, Caleb's.
Okay. Cool.
Second favorite would probably be Janus.
The Imperial Knight. Okay.
The Imperial Knight.
Very subtle.
It's just because
very subtle.
This character is a complete spaz, so.
And the backstory in that is really subtle. It's mostly focused around another character and a distant heritage that doesn't even play that much part in the current story, as far as I'm aware.
Right, yeah. It doesn't play any part in the current story other than her watching holodramas. and if you can guess the character that she's related to, because everybody in this game, they are descendants from somebody important.
More or less.
More or less. It may not be completely obvious.
Yeah. Legacy is a big part of the Star Wars game, so.
Right.
So, Janus, okay, interesting. Let's round it out because everything comes in threes. You have a third?
Do I have a third favorite character backstory? Got to think for a minute on that one.
And while he's thinking, this episode is sponsored by water. We drink this shit to live, we use this to cook, and we use our laboratory interests for it. So, buy water. Drink water.
You don't even need to... 240 games a year. So, I'm trying to think here. I don't know. What about you?
Me. Okay, I'll go. Buy you some time while you're working on your third one. Just because our water sponsorship deal just ended.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, we forgot to tell YouTube that a natural resource was sponsoring our episode. FCC is going to be knocking on our door any moment now. So, favorite backstory to work in. Let me think. Favorite backstory to work in. I think Milo. Only, and because that was a backstory that I turn on its head, and I'm using it to propel a future storyline with.
Right.
So it's not that it's a backstory, but it's not the backstory that he knows. Which, if he's listening to this, take that as your note. I would say he is becoming my favorite just because of the backstory that I know, and he hasn't been revealed yet.
Right.
Second backstory, going on that same note, I'd have to say, Gwen. From
Gwen?
Yeah, and it's not even from a game that you're in, but a couple of our players are in. Because she's the amnesia character. I was talking about that earlier. She has the amnesia character, so it's like, it's a plethora of stuff. I have a template about what she was aiming for, but she gave me reign to mess up that template. So, I'd say Gwen is probably another one of my favorites because hers is more of a mystery instead of what it will become. Third favorite backstory, though, to work into a game. I'd have to say maybe I'm gonna round around now and say probably maybe Jathir. Jathir's is very simple, but it's not about what his backstory was. It's about what the player did and ran with it. Just ran the mile with it. So he made that backstory very, very enjoyable, and I hope it still continues to remain enjoyable because as of now, we're still in the middle going through it. So,
right.
I would say Milo, Gwen, and Jathir, all from 5th edition games, have been my favorite character backstories to work into the story in some form or another, and I'm sure that list will change as time goes on.
So my third favorite is actually a new one.
Oh, yep.
Darius.
Wow, 2 for 2. I'm happy.
Darius.
Okay, yeah. That's cool. I'm honored. I'm 2 out of your 3 spots. You're not just looking up to me, are you?
Oh, no. You know I don't do that shit. No, Darius, working him in has been great. Like, first off...
We can't really talk too much because we're sure our players are watching this right now, so they're eager and going, go on.
Yes, we can only reveal what they already know. So, son of Loki.
One of the sons of Loki.
One of the sons of Loki.
So yeah, son of Loki, brother to the half-brother to the other son of Loki, who's a part of our group. That's public knowledge, right?
That is public knowledge to a few of them.
Okay, post-production, me edit this part out.
Not everybody was on during that, but people do know it. So
okay.
If they weren't on, they left early.
Post-production, me maybe keep this in. So Darius, yeah. I can see Darius. His background implicates into future things and can have the potential to not overtake the story, but interweave of another character's story.
Right. And I like those the best. Usually is two characters that kind of share a backstory, or at least part of a backstory, and they're very different characters.
But they have that bond over an element in their backstory. So what happens is it complements each other. And I think that's what ends up happening when you and I are actually playing together in the same room.
Yes.
Our record, for the most part, is that we've had characters who happen to be each other's opposites in a compatible way.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes the polar opposite, on the exact polar opposite scale, and they work together so amazingly that it just works. There's no beating those characters if they're working together.
Yeah, I think we made that a focal point too. I think that was a focal point in the first Grimm campaign. Whenever these two are literally in the same room, they are exponentially more powerful together.
And that's because they're two halves of a whole. That's a whole different thing there. They were actually became that later on in the game. I had no clue when I was first doing this that I was going to do that, but they ended up becoming polar opposites as far as their power sets and everything, including their backstory. Working that in was good. It was fun working that in.
There's a very similar pattern that I see happening with the second campaign with Darius and Fen. Two different characters sharing a backstory, but are personality and ability-wise, they're opposites. Fen's the brutal up-close fighter, blunt to the point. Darius is the planner, or vested in the arcane, or in the prime.
Yes, which is kind of the opposite of the first game.
Yeah, I actually just realized that now. You were the caster, and I was the up close and personal.
Yes.
Did you intend that? Did you intend that, or was that just?
Dude, I don't ever intend anything.
I don't know. There are some just domino pieces that I have to ask. Did you really not plan this? Because I knew I wanted to try casting, but
right. And when you decided on casting, and you were deciding who your parent was going to be.
Yeah, because I had no idea at the time. I wasn't that particular part of the Grimm game. I had a more difficult time wanting to go for something, so I kind of waited a little bit until everybody selected theirs. Adventures of being a GM, at least whose parent is who. So just to kind of go, okay, we got this. And I had just finished playing God of War. I was very into the Norse mythology and that kind of deal. So I was going, okay.
He wanted to be a Greek. He wanted to be a Greek in the Norse lands, because that's where we're playing, essentially, in this part of the story. If you're in the Norse lands, and...
Right, I did... I originally said Greek, I think, to you? Or I was...
Yeah.
I was kind of... I think I was saying Greek, and then in my head I was going, I don't know if I'm, fully settled on this.
Right. And I had already decided that I was going to bring in Finn, who got revealed recently as Fenris.
Mm-hmm.
Or Fenrir.
Or Fenrir, if you know that, or that name. The big wolf, essentially.
Yeah.
Look it up.
Google is your friend.
Or if you're using Yahoo, I love you and pity. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I apologize to Yahoo. If you're using Bing, I'm sorry. Remember when Bing was a thing?
Yes.
Is it still a thing?
I don't think so.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and I had already decided on my character because I'm like, they need kind of a leader to show them the ropes, especially since a lot of our players weren't here last game. So we kind of throw them a babysitter every now and then to help them with the party
And themselves.
and the story. Yes. And this is a past group from the original, so they're 400 or 500 years in the past compared to what we call the modern group is.
Time of the Gods and that stuff.
Right.
So you...
I knew what mine was going to be, and then everybody else had picked theirs. And you were leaning towards Greek, but you couldn't find a caster.
I couldn't find anybody I liked.
Right. I'm like, well, the only caster I can think of is Medea. You know.
Yeah, wife of
knows.
Jason of the Argonauts.
Right.
I ended up using that to a degree, but I didn't, not in the way that I thought. I remember suggesting, Jason of the Argonauts, and I was like, I wasn't really settled on it. Then I was like, what if I'm half and half? What if I'm half Greek, half Norse, and why not Loki? Why not Loki?
And then I had to tell you, I'm like, okay, all right, so we got to work some shit out now, because Finn is the son of. If Finn was originally going to be the son of Fenris, but then I'm like, okay, he's going to be Fenris.
Right, I remember that you were originally going to be the son of Fenris.
Yes.
And then he's like, well, let's just, now that you're being a child of Loki, let's just change it. I'll just be Fenris, Fen for short, so you can keep the Fen name.
Right. And I'm like, okay, so you're going to be a child of Loki. Have we told them about the other thing yet? I don't remember.
They were No, they technically do not know that. They technically do not know that. Sue, sorry guys.
Yeah, no spoilers beyond this point.
No, sorry.
I also know Norse mythology, so, narrowing it down. But we're going to edit this part out anyway, so, or not. Just to torture him a little more. But, yeah. He would be number 3 just because of that. Before that, I would have to say it was probably Ever.
Oh, she's gonna kill me. Oh, she's gonna kill me, or she's gonna kill you. She's gonna kill me. She's gonna kill you, and she's gonna spare me with the threat of death.
Ever has been replaced as a favorite. Sorry.
Well, I can see why, because it wasn't so. It's not so much of her backstory as much as her personality, which is what she did for character creation and what the character did end up becoming one of our favorite moments from that game. You're talking about Ever being dethroned as in terms of backstory, but what about for character creation? Because I think she only got dethroned from backstory because her character ended up becoming very light.
Personality, great, funny character. It's something unusual from
This player.
The player. Yes, this was a very happy character. I loved it. It was a pain in the ass during creation.
Really?
Really.
What, because of all the powers you had to think for her?
Yeah, well, basically this character is the daughter of Peter Pan. It wasn't coming up with the powers, it was fitting them in mechanically.
Okay, yeah, I mean, the biggest easiest one is flight.
Flight, easy.
The shadow might have been a little bit more ickier.
The shadow was a bit rough because I had to figure out the actual mechanics of how it would work. I still
have troubles to these days figuring out how that shadow works.
She had these very specific idea of Peter Pan, and my idea of Peter Pan is very different than hers.
Yeah, so. That's a conversation for another day. I'll give the short version. there's a reason why I'm now in charge of Neverland.
Yeah.
We tried his version of Neverland, and we tried her version of Neverland. Nobody talked to each other, so when they started talking to each other, it was like oil and water. They just couldn't come together on that. So between when we were finally starting this one, I was like, "Hey, could I have Neverland? 'Cause, you know, it wasn't really working out." And you were like, "Take it, just take Neverland, okay? Just take. I know what you're gonna do. Just take Neverland." I was like, "Oh, okay." I mean, so. Is that what do you think that reminds you most? Is this such a different character when you come to character creation? I mean, did a happy character like that really work in Grimm? She made it work.
Yes. She made it work, even if it didn't. I mean, there was even the part where I had to come up with think happy thoughts, her power. So she would never have to roll rage. She could roll mana for her rage every time.
She's never used it. She's probably listening to this right now, and she's going, "I could do what? What's rage? What's mana?
Yeah, probably.
I have willpower?"
She's never had to use any of that stuff. So, except willpower.
Okay, yeah. She has used willpower before.
Mechanically, they're good things to have, and they're bad things to have, both of them.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just a pain in the ass to get this character actually how she wanted it to be. And that's what I wanted out of all the characters was, what's your ideal version of this character?
And I was like, can I have a cool axe? Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. One was like, well, I'm the son of the beast, so I'll have like a beast form. Okay. I'm the son of Ursula. Done. And then she was like, I got a list.
I got a list of requirements that's got to be met, and I'm like, okay.
Okay. Character creation like that. You got that character who, tonal-wise from the other characters, broke tone a bit, still made it work. I almost think that maybe you started taking inspiration for that with your namesake, Xander.
I wanted to play something different. I'm normally the calm, collected warrior type of character, or I'm the rage monster, or evil.
Purple.
Or purple. There's purple. Purple was pretty positive, though. He was pretty positive about everything, especially eating Milo.
Yes.
But yes, Xander. He's a different type of character for me, and I'm the type that likes Batman, not Superman. I like Wolverine over Captain America. I like the angry characters a lot of the time.
And Xander was...
And then Xander is super positive.
I noticed when you're done with the kind of rage character, you go to the complete other end of the spectrum.
Yes. I try to hit all the spectrums with different characters. I don't like playing the same type of character right back to back.
Yeah, and you had Tempest, Purple, and Glissa. While Purple was a break, Tempest and Glissa were very, very similar.
Tempest was calm, but she was just boring. That was her only problem. She was just too boring to play. It was a storm cleric. I was one-shotting enemies with her. It wasn't fun for me, and it would have eventually led to where it wasn't fun for anybody else.
Mm.
Because I have played that type of character before that could one-shot bosses in a scene. I'm talking dragons. Okay, you stop talking right now, you're dead. And then go on and finish a conversation. And then raise the dragon up as a pet.
What do you expect from people for character creation? because I've never seen you require a certain a set, or you don't have one at first, and then you say something later after everybody else has created their characters, and we're standing here going, "What? But we were told what? Okay, all right, cool. World's been exploded."
Try to fit the theme. You know, that's my main requirement, is to try to fit the theme of the game. I say this as, you know, your cowboy being one of my favorite characters in a game.
Why is he your favorite? This is the first time this is the first time I'm hearing about this. This character, we only did 3 sessions of that game.
As you know, I'm Southern. I like cowboy stuff.
I apologize then for my terrible impression, but I think I already knew that going in.
Yeah. No, it was the attitude towards everything. Like, we've had the turtle, which I was like, you got to be a monk, you know, be a monk.
He went barrier mage, of course.
He went barrier mage, and he was super scared of everything. I'm not a fan of coward type characters. It's because it's very hard to pull off. I think he's finally getting to where he's getting that character right with Arya.
Arya is also more of a I'd say Arya's Arya's a good balance of that.
You know, his vampire was in the wrong direction for that. It was, and he knew that. He stepped out of the game. You know, and then he tried it again, and did he try it again after that? Before the barrier mage?
No, it was the turtle.
Okay. The turtle was hilarious with it. You know, demons would run at him, and he would hide in his shell and throw a barrier up. I mean, it was hilarious.
I think that one, he was starting to get the idea of play to the skill.
Right. And I sent him actually a video by Matthew Colville, I believe, that talks about playing that kind of character. And then there's Arya, who's...
Oh, no, you can't get away from this one. What was James your favorite?
Why was James my favorite? Okay. Out of all the characters in that game, he was a human in Sigil with a gun. That's great. I mean, it was just a cowboy in Sigil for no reason other than being in Sigil. And it was the quote where you were arguing with the turtle, and I don't remember the character's name at the moment.
It starts with an M. Mateo.
You were having a discussion with Mateo, and he would say a paladin, and you would correct him and say, "No, that's a ranger." So you're a cleric. No, I'm a priest.
I'm a preacher. I'm a preacher.
I'm a preacher. Yeah. And y'all were just having that discussion, and this was during one of the early side sessions before the game even actually got started.
Because we did like a session 0.
That character just right there became one of my favorites during that conversation. Because my NPC Malice was there as well.
Another opposite.
And she was from Dark Sun, so again, she was from a Western type world that's post-apocalyptic. So desert, but super deadly. While your character was more from a Western that was more steam.
Yeah, we had to homebrew the world, I think.
We did have to homebrew the world.
Yeah, it was just it was a random world. We used a concept for a kind of Spirit of the West kind of deal for his clerical power. And yeah, we only played like 3 sessions of Planescape, so
yeah,
I'll have to bring back James
I feel
sometime.
that would have lasted if we would have went in with 5th edition. We would probably still be playing it, honestly.
Really?
Going back to 3.5, it was rough.
Was it rough for you or rough for everyone else?
everybody, me included. I hadn't even touched 3.5 other than Star Wars, and that doesn't count for
Yeah,
you know 2 or 3 years, and then going back into it, like I forgot how big it was. After playing 5e, it's massive, spreadsheet RPG.
We also couldn't even get a good character sheet.
Yeah, exactly. That killed it for me too.
We had to use a Pathfinder. Because they had a 3.5 on the site, but apologies to the individual who made it, but it wasn't. The big thing about it was it had links to sites that were most likely outdated, and it had a UI that just didn't really kind of mesh. But Pathfinder had a better optimized sheet and a compendium.
Yes.
And a lot of Pathfinder spells are very similar to that of 3.5. So we had to ignore a couple differences, and we used the Pathfinder sheet instead.
I don't know. It was sitting through building characters with people, trying to just slug through that. And then, I spent all that time building that isometric dungeon.
You really wanted to do an isometric map. You were so focused on wanting to have an isometric map. You worked your ass off to make an isometric map.
To make 2. I made 2 of them. And used dynamic lighting, which I don't recommend.
Unless you have the time. Unless you really have the time.
Yeah, guys, if you build an isometric map on Roll20, leave it alone. Use dynamic lighting.
Or
don't use the dynamic lighting. Use the fog of war.
Yeah, or do the brave thing and make a YouTube video step by step in the basic layman's terms and give us the link to that video, please. Speaking of a character creation, everybody runs into the same template. We always got our fallback to be comfortable on. We expect one person to play a particularly angry character. We expect one person to kind of play the charismatic liar, or go evil. Did you notice, in terms of character creation, the 5th edition game had some really odd character creation ideas, the more that I think about it. The vampire who hunts other evil creatures, the
Tiefling Jon Snow.
And then we had the curious wizard who wanted to be a performer. If I was smart, I would have said, those don't match, try something else. But no, I was like, okay, let's keep going.
Yep, and Tafael was born.
Oh boy, yeah. Tafael was born and it kept going. But I think that game has some crazy kind of thematic character creation ideas. I don't know, with that one, people started experimenting, I feel.
Yes. Purple, definitely. Seeing what else the party had to offer, Purple came along.
Yeah, Mind Flayer, Antonio Banderas.
And then Glissa.
A Dryad Druid.
That one's actually the most normal of all of them. As far as a power set matching goes, power set matching the race and everything. That one is probably the most normal that we've got. Personality is hilarious, but
I think you advised. No. Did she come up with that one on her own, or did you advise on that one?
She came up with that one on her own. I'm the one who advised the Dryad.
Okay.
Because she decided she wanted to play a druid, and then she had asked me about a couple of races, and I'm like, well, what about a Dryad? And she's like, is there a Dryad in 5th edition? And I looked up her homebrew and gave it to her, because I knew there was somewhere. I mean, there's a Power Ranger, so.
Yeah, there's a We have the Dragonborn, the extremely charismatic Dragonborn, who is now going through his personal arc.
Yep. Just a year.
Jithir.
Oh, buddy.
Yeah. Then and Xander came right. No, I'm sorry. We have Ortegra, Dragon Casualty Cleric, worshipper of Zeus.
Yep.
And
then we've got the hot mess that is Xander.
Yeah. And now we have the continent's first Furbolg.
Yeah.
So yeah, the more I realize it, the more that game has some really crazy character conception ideas. And I think maybe that's my fault that I didn't establish a very cohesive theme. World building is admittedly not one of... At first, it's not one of my strongest aspects. I tend to find I do better world building as it goes along, which is why I tend to stick to very simple stories, terrible geographical locations. I do not have spatial awareness. I'm sorry.
Yes, trying to make a map for him, terrible.
Yeah. And then, because I didn't really establish a theme for the game, so I kind of gave everybody free keys to go crazy.
Yep.
And it's given a myriad group, and it works, and everybody's got a power set and a place they belong. I guess one of the things about 5th edition is that now all the classes are so hyper-focused. You pick one, you fall into that role. And then you can kind of build, and you can tweak the role with multi-classes and that kind of deal. But it's different creating a character for this than it is for creating a character for Star Wars. In terms mechanically. And especially, and thematically too.
Oh yeah. Because, thematically, the first question out of my mouth, do you want to be a Jedi? Do you want to be a Force user? If not, here's the rest of the crap you can be.
Yeah, and you typically, even then, you're going to fall into a couple roles. You're either going to be a soldier. You're either going to be a soldier. You're either going to be a noble, a scoundrel, a smuggler, that kind of deal. And in the beginning, and because it's Star Wars, you fall into those archetypes and those roles a lot. But afterwards, because with 3.8, everything becomes kind of it blends. The classes don't really have set roles. They're just kind of tools to build your character with.
Right.
So, anybody asks me, what's my Star Wars character? What's his class? He's a 6th level scoundrel. He's a 5th level scoundrel, 1st level soldier, 4th level gunslinger, and 1st level ace pilot.
He's Han Solo.
Something like that, yes. But because with that game, character creation does not become what is your class, but it's more like, all right, who's your character? Just pick the tools you need to make your character.
Exactly. Yeah, you can be a gunslinging Jedi who never went to the Jedi Order, blah, blah, blah. You just happen to be a Force-sensitive gunslinger because you want to be. Or... I feel like that's also part of the problem with World of Darkness. Is there's no class.
There's no role for a player to set into.
You have to create your own. It's a lot more open, and people freak out when it comes to that. With Star Wars, at least you know what universe you fit into.
It's not just. I've just realized it's not just that either, but we naturally want to find a role whatever we do, and because World of Darkness is so vast, anybody can pick up anything.
Yeah.
I'm going to be a more roguelike character, so I'm going to put a lot into Dex and Stealth. Well, there's no real feature for being a roguelike character, so somebody else is going to pick up Stealth at some point in the line, potentially. And then that person goes, well, but I'm the rogue. But everybody gets access to the same stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not fitting a role. And that's what I think sometimes they have a hard time with World of Darkness. They want to roll. Vampire the Masquerade, at least, you got Brujah. You got your roles, so to speak.
Right. If it's a tribal game like Vampire or Werewolf, you've got certain roles that you fit into. And the options are open to you to make whatever you want to make out of this role. And there's certain things that are better. But without a World of Darkness, which is everything in the World of Darkness in one game, there's far too much for people to choose from.
Yeah, at that point, it stops becoming, well, what's my role? No, what's your character?
Yes.
And I still see a little bit of that struggle. Every now and then.
Yeah.
But when you embrace the concept of what is your character, with a World of Darkness game that is, if you're doing a homebrew World of Darkness and you have everything access to the sheet, don't create a role. Just build your character. Because your role, there are no features for you being, actually there are a couple of features if you want to be a barbarian. There are some role-specific kind of ideas. But they're not a class-based system. They don't fall into that.
And just a little word of advice, pro tip, if you're going to use a magic system in this game, go with the pre-established one from Mage. Don't try to create your own.
Why did you try to create your own? I remember sitting there going, hey, maybe you should have a handout for the things of magic. Yeah, sure, I'll do that.
Yeah.
He didn't do it.
Because Mage's World of Darkness Advanced, and I didn't want to put any people who might want to be a magic user through that. And then we only had 2 magic users, both who are completely familiar with World of Darkness. So that kind of
alleviated the need. But at that point, I said, hey, we need a magic system because we're bringing in more people who may want to use magic. I was like, I'm just using Mage. I'm using the stuff from Mage. We're going to use the stuff from Mage.
I'm using the stuff that's pre-built into the game already that I just didn't use last time. If they have a problem with it, we'll deal with it then.
Yeah, hey, hands are clean. We didn't make it.
Yeah, we didn't make it.
What's the safest character creation you've seen? Is it just falling back into a role, or is it just...
Safest? I really don't know, because there's problems in every spectrum of it with just falling into a role. Like you said, 5e is probably the best for that. Just filling a role and then building a character on top of that role.
Yeah, they really hyper-focused the classes with their features and that kind of thing.
Right. See, I don't know. I'm always a fan of building the character first, And if that means building the sheet first or building the character's personality first, either or.
If I look at what's the safest character creation, I kind of touched upon this earlier. It's just doing the same thing again with a slightly different variation.
Yeah.
Making 2 royals back to back that are very similar from each other. Just one is a slight variation of the other, or what I like to call the second draft.
Yeah, and that's one way to do it. Example from our second campaign in Grimm. Willow.
Yes, that's fair. It is a near exact copy, except now that the thought process actually fits the age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Although, in defense of said character, there were 2 reasons of why we did that. The player didn't understand that we were picking new characters initially at the time. She thought that we were going to be continuing the stories of that same character.
Mm.
We also had came up with the father-daughter storyline. And, in defense, that was a late move.
It really was.
Yeah, we were just announcing that we were going to start a second campaign when I had finally pulled aside. I was like, hey, our characters from the first campaign, married. We never said that they had kids at the end of the epilogue, but we have time to change things. You want to say that they had a kid now? So, and then you announced you were doing the second campaign. and she didn't know what to pick. She didn't really know what she was going to think. It was like, well, what if we do a father-daughter storyline? Because I just got out of playing God of War. Are you seeing a similarity here? I can't wait to see what we come up with the next with character stuff. Every new game is a different surprise.
Yes. I can't wait to introduce my new character.
Oh my god, no. And with those screams of terror right out of the way, and followed by that laugh of evil, that is where we're going to cut today's podcast. Thank you guys for listening all the way through. We are going to try to keep a consistent-ish release schedule once a week, but we are just two guys doing what we love part-time. But if you want to see us start maybe leaving from part-time to taking this full-time, we have a Patreon account. For a simple $5 a month, you can help us support the show. Every little bit helps out. If you want to stay updated on what episodes are coming out and what the topics are going to be, we have a Facebook and Twitter page you can follow right down in the description link below. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks again.